next speaker is Jim Helton, who is the founder and president of the Tri-State Freethinkers, which is based in the Cincinnati area but serves the entirety of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. Today he's going to be talking about sex education in schools, particularly abstinence-only education, and I assume it's a positive spin on it? In any case, we'll find out. I think that's in the presentation. So here's Jim Helton for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it may not be so positive, so I'm going to apologize for that now. I want to treat this talk like I kind of do sex. As a group, it's okay if you listen and watch for a while, but you'll have a lot more fun if you participate. Okay? So how did I get involved with this? In my son's school, middle school, parents came across this book, Choosing the Best Way, by the New Hope Center. And what they found, the parents were horrified. And they were like, they all were upset about this, and they're like, who's going to do something about this? And they're like, well, not me. Well, I'm afraid to say something. And they're like, well, Grover's dad will. So they brought it to me, and I just jumped out of my chair and was like, I would love to take on this project. Now, unlike my other slides and other presentations I do, everything that I do is word for word out of this book. Let me repeat that. It is word for word out of this book. I did not improvise or make anything up on here. So here's a couple people in this book when you first open the book. Now this confuses me because I am a big fan of Abe Lincoln, full disclosure. But when I think of sex, that's not the guy that does it for me. Not the most sexy American. Then we have Cortez, not the most moral character in our history, but okay, and then Mother Teresa. Do I need to start with Mother Teresa? You need to read Hitchens' book. The missionary position. What a horrible human being. I could do a whole talk on Mother Teresa. So this is how the book starts with these characters. Now, this is where I need, as a group activity, I need you to come in. When you think of sex and emotions, and this is a free-for-all, I want you to shout out, what things do you, as a group, think of when you think of sex as free thinkers and secular people? What are some of the thoughts? Great answers. All wrong. So you're supposed to hear all the correct answers about having sex. Guilt, disappointment, well, sometimes, regret, worry, depression, loss of self-esteem. Those are all correct answers. Yeah, all correct answers. Now, this is my favorite quote, and I have said this so many times, I don't even need to read this. This is from Alicia, and she gives this quote. Sex is like pre-chewed chewing gum. Is this what you want to present to your husband? Oh, it gets better. What does Alicia mean by the example of pre-chewed chewing gum? And the students are to write the answer. So not only are they teaching abstinence only, they are teaching so much misinformation on here. Now, if you're a little pissed off, let me just anger you a little bit more because I'm pretty good at that. The federal government over the last 20 years has spent over $1 billion funding these programs. That's with a B. They've also, last month, increased it by $25 million a year because we weren't spending enough as it is. The state of Kentucky funds it by $17 million a year, and it's the law you must teach abstinence only, sex education in Kentucky. Then we have Lauren. Now, when I got this book, I didn't think there was anything I could learn from this book at a 6th grade level in a public school. And remind you, this is a public school. But Lauren taught me something I didn't know. And you may not know this, so this is important for you guys to pay attention, because I'm sure you didn't know this. I gave in to peer pressure and had sex. Now that I've made the decision to wait on sex until marriage, why did Lauren choose to become a renewed virgin? I did not know you could do that. This is what I learned from this book. It's absolutely amazing. Now, which group experiences the highest level of sexual satisfaction? Any ideas here?
People with sex education.
Okay, well, let me give you some of your choices. Sexually active teenagers? That's pretty happy. Singles in their 20s? Unmarried young adults living together, or married couples? Now, out of this, for those of you who are married, how many of you would say married couples? That is the correct answer. Some. I don't know, my 20s were pretty rocking. Now, when they teach abstinence only, you would think that they're just teaching kids not to have sex, and it would stop there. But it doesn't. And this is where the danger comes in for what they do. So let me tell you some myths and facts about sex. And if you notice, this is in quotes, exactly the way they do it. What about safe or safer sex? What about that? Well, let me give you the myth. If you use a condom, you will be completely protected from getting an STD or becoming pregnant. And it goes on to show condoms as a negative, like they really don't help you. But the facts are, condoms can protect you from a broken heart. And condoms are rubber, and they can break or slip off. So basically, why use them? They're useless. And there is much more information on this. They also give advice. Now, this is some good advice. So everything is from basically a gender point of view, male, female. The men are always trying to get laid, and the women are always trying to stop it. And it's very gender biased. And so when the boys are coming at the women, okay, and I'm sure you've had advances, so I am going to give you how to stop those advances, okay? And there's some really sound advice here. So let me set up the scenario. The first thing you would say to that boy is, I really like spending time with you, but I don't trust myself to be alone with you. So the clear solution is, let's go grab a soda. Yeah. Yes. You know, because we don't have a weight problem in the U.S. anyway, so let's just go ahead soda. So that is the advice to, now, I know the conference here has a sexual harassment policy. So if a woman says, let's go get a soda, you know you've crossed the line and you need to back off a little bit. So that will be your cue to stop what you're saying if anybody says this to you. Opposite sex. Every example in the book is a man and a woman, unnecessarily. If you are going to be describing oral sex, you could say very simply, when a mouth is placed on the penis, it doesn't have to say a woman to a man or a man to a woman. They constantly do this, and they do it on purpose, and a lot of times they do it in bold print. There is no need to bring gender into these type of things, but they are very, very clear to do so. Do abstinence-only programs work? Spoiler alert, no. Now here's the data, and this is the crazy thing. The University of Cincinnati did a study, okay, over a 7-year period of the Northern Kentucky schools. And they had a really good control, because when they did this, half the schools taught abstinence only, and the other half taught nothing, okay? What they found was the schools that taught nothing performed better or equal to the schools that taught abstinence only. It was actually no effect teaching abstinence only, and in a lot of cases, it was worse. Now, this is the part that's going to piss you off. Since then, now that we have this great study, and Kentucky loves to say, well, that's California or New York. No, these are our schools. Since that study came out, the majority of the schools that were teaching nothing are now teaching abstinence only since that study came out. The other part of this is the teachers don't teach it. A church does. Church programs, now they create a separate LLC nonprofit called A New Hope, but it's just a division of the local churches. And they come in there and they know nothing about sex. When I brought this to my son's school, I had the ACLU come in. They came to my house and dropped me off their files and told me this would be years' battles. The wedge I used to combat this was this. The principal, who was a newer principal, said, can I get a copy of that book? And I said, isn't that your problem? If you're asking me for a copy of your own book and you don't know what's being taught? And that was really the wedge I was used to get this thrown out in 45 days in my son's school from the meetings. So if it doesn't work, what is the answer? It's comprehensive sex education. Greta shouted that out. It is the answer. Now, this is where I lost in the school, but I'm still working on it. And I was amazed at how swiftly the school acted on this, because it was only 3 weeks till school started. So I thought I had no shot on the year. So the fact they threw it out, I was amazed. So then I tried to insert comprehensive sex ed, and this is where I ran into the roadblock, and I lost on this one. I am trying this year. Granted, putting a school program with only 3 weeks to go, I get it. But I kept hearing the board members say, well, if my son learns how to use a condom, he's more likely to have sex. And then they're like, well, I believe my daughter. Every sentence that a board member said started with I believe. And I had to nicely say this to the board. I don't mean to be rude, but I don't care what you believe. Let's not go by belief. Why don't we go by the facts and the data? I have it. I have what the data shows when kids learn how to use condoms. I have all the data here, and it's none of what you believe. It's just wrong. There's only one side effect of teaching comprehensive sex ed that's negative. There is only one, and you need to be aware of it. That a couple conservative parents will be pissed off. That's it. And with that, I'm okay with it, and you can give them my number. I'd be happy to have that conversation with them. But that is it. There is a great case study of a state that did amazing things. Free birth control for Colorado. They gave their teens free birth control. And not only free birth control, they did implants. Do you know what the result of that was? Their teen pregnancy and abortion rates dropped by 40%. In a short period of time. Yeah. And they're trying to cut the program. Yeah. And here's the thing as an activist that pisses me off probably the most. You know, when the gentleman that was speaking before talked about the Middle East and he's like, what is the answer? It's a tough problem. We don't have the answers. I mean, it is a very tough problem we should debate on how to fix. With all the things that we face in the U.S. about secularism, humanism, birth control, sex, women, we know what the answer is. They're not controversial. They're very simple, and we have the data to back it up, and it pisses me off that we can't implement it and that we have this problems. But the good news is all it takes is for people like you to stand up and say enough and present the facts and the data. They can't, you just stop them when they say, I believe. If you were in a high school that taught this, go back to that high school. Go to the school boards. Show them the data. I have it. I will give you my email address. I can send you all the information and research I did on this. It's hard to refute. I mean, it is staring them in the face on what that data shows, and it is harmful. It is very harmful. So with that, I'll open up if anybody has any questions.